This topic for the session here is all about consumer storytelling, something that we are super passionate about and excited to engage you with today. Before we kind of dive into it, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. First and foremost, go ahead and if you're not already aware, double click on the presentation slide so it's a little bit bigger in your view. We'll be able to see a little bit better, and just let you know these slides will be available for you all. They'll be shared out. So no need to feel like you got to take notes or whatever. Hopefully you can kind of kick back, relax, listen in, look in, and we'll share what we have for you today. So consumer storytelling, as we get into it, let me just do some quick introductions. My name is Jeff Schroeder. I'm the CEO of an agency headquartered here in Cincinnati called Tremor. And with me from the Tremor team today also is Paulette Yaros. Paulette is our head of insights and creative. And then Brandon Kress, who is our head of strategy and client development. And so the three of us are going to tag team here today to take you through consumer storytelling. Here's what we're going to try to cover in the session. So really three things, very specifically, what is it? What is consumer storytelling and why is it so important? Secondly, what are the key principles and the techniques to actually go out and make this happen, which you can do? And then third, we're going to share some real world examples with you that just kind of allow you to see how the principles and the techniques are actually put into practice kind of in the real world. Our goal is for you to kind of walk away hopefully with a little stickiness around these principles and the different areas to apply them so you can go ahead and start to experiment with that and put it to good use on your own business. Trust us, the power of storytelling from consumers is pretty transformational for your business. So we're excited to hopefully help you get started on that. We're always here to help as well as a resource, and we'll share some contact information at the end. But let's go ahead and dive into this. Quick background on Tremor, just to kind of set the context so that you kind of understand why consumer storytelling is so central to everything that we do and why we are just so passionate about it. Our mission as a company is really all about helping brands and companies transform the way they go from innovation all the way through to in-market execution. Our relentless focus is simply on getting innovation to market faster, way better, and honestly set up for dramatically higher rates of success because in today's environment in the industry, for most companies, unfortunately, getting innovation to market is just taking way too long. The process is too complex, it's too expensive. And despite everyone's best efforts, initiative failure rates as an industry continue to be extremely high. So we want to just flip that reality. We believe there are ways with unique process tools and capabilities to make innovation happen faster, make it better, do unique things, leveraging consumers at the center, and especially consumer stories, like deep, rich, meaningful stories to guide and inspire how we move through that innovation cycle so much faster with so much more insight and knowledge so that when we hit the market, we know what it takes to win versus we're still left guessing a little bit or placing some big bets. And so we'll show you kind of what that looks like and how you can dramatically improve your rate of success in market and get there faster. So we've built a unique set of tools and technologies that we couple with a very unique asset we have in a national built-in audience of consumer influencers that are super engaged with us. So we bring those two worlds together, and that helps us create a little bit of magic across every single step of the innovation journey, from early ideas and prototyping into incubation and early iterative transactional selling and learning, and then into full market launch and marketing ramp up. So you can imagine that is why consumers are so central to every piece of our work and our journey, and the ability to orchestrate and elicit great, rich, meaningful consumer stories is what allows really all that key work to happen. So moving to the next slide here, there is a difference, right, between brand storytelling and consumer-led storytelling. Brand storytelling is near and dear to all of our hearts. Many of us have spent the bulk of our career trying to master the art of brand storytelling. Many of you in the audience with small businesses or startups, you do a great job of really trying to tell your story, your purpose. Why do you exist? What's your mission? And so that's work that we all should constantly, perfect and optimize because it's so important. I'll actually reference you. There'll be a session happening a little bit later today, led by Shane Mooker from P&G around the art of storytelling. And he's just a master at really, how do you think about the construct and the ingredients to great stories? And how do you apply that to, telling the story of your brand or of your company? So we're going to focus on the other side of that equation. So the two are, very related but different. And so consumer-led storytelling is admittedly quite a bit tougher, right? You are not in control of that the way you are your brand storytelling. The consumer is in control. It's their experience. It's their story. You're not really at the center of that. You're really just the enabler for them to be the hero, to have an amazing experience, an amazing story that's worth telling and sharing. And it's not something that you just need to leave to chance. You can genuinely, meaningfully orchestrate and influence getting that as an outcome. And when you're able to do that, the application to your business, kind of as we talked earlier, but also, the ability to turn people loose to do all the influencing for you out in the market, those stories will live on, be passed, person to person, group to group. Assets like user-generated content, blog posts, social, all of those storytelling opportunities are assets that can exponentially multiply and amplify for you. So as we get into it, let me also just kind of ground us in a couple of painful realities that drive why it is so incredibly important that we all become kind of masters and artists of consumer storytelling. That is really kind of what it's all about in today's marketplace. It is, it's no longer a marketing kind of push messaging, push advertising world, right? The consumer is in control. It's all about deep consumer engagement. They want to connect. Consumers want to connect. They want to have experiences. They want to be immersed. They want personalization. And more than anything, they demand authenticity. Right. And so, unfortunately, brand, trust in advertising, when you look at the studies, is kind of at an all-time low. And when you couple that with people are just tuning it out, it's harder to reach people. Attention spans aren't there. They don't really trust it that much. You've got, high levels of ad blocking. And so we all know those barriers that we're up against as kind of brand communicators. When you can actually approach it differently and, kind of hit consumers the way they want to be hit, which is like much more individually connected with and immersed, and provide much more of an experience that elicits a story, an emotional, impactful story and journey for them that is worth sharing with others and sharing back with the brand. That's kind of our world of marketing today. So again, the ability to orchestrate and elicit that as an outcome, is super important and super influential. So the other thing we kind of want to ground you in and just share is that consumer storytelling not only can, but absolutely should happen across all key phases of your work. So this is not just something kind of on the back end of great marketing efforts, right? Where you get, product reviews and testimonials and word of mouth. That's incredibly important. And that's a big part of this kind of third bucket of work. But almost equally, if not more importantly, is how do you engage in a way to get that type of deep, rich storytelling from consumers in the earlier phases before you get there? So even as you're in the phase of research and really seeking to get insights and ideas and you're working on your prototypes, the ability to, again, engage and elicit true holistic storytelling from consumers gets you to next level in terms of bigger ideas, bigger ahas, bigger insights. And then especially as you think about a mentality of applying that when you go into the incubation mode. And candidly, this does not happen very often with most brands. Most incubation is just trying to get a quick read on, are people buying it? And is it growing much? There's not a ton of in-depth insight. The ability to uniquely engage consumers in some different and provocative ways to, elicit those stories and get not only much more quantitative understanding, but much more qualitative understanding of who are they, why are they doing what they're doing as buyers, as non-buyers. And we'll show you a couple of examples of this because that, again, gets you next level. And that is what allows you to shape, developing and refining your proposition in that incubation phase So when you hit the market, you know how to win, you know with whom to win, you know what's working or what else needs to be addressed to get those non-converters converted. And that allows your marketing efforts as you ramp up to be that much more pointed and that much more effective. So the whole thing really works in harmony end to end. So I'm going to introduce quickly just the 4 key principles that we try to apply across every one of those phases of work, every consumer engagement. And then I'll turn it over to Paulette, who's our guru, kind of master professor, and she'll break each of these down for you a little bit more. When she's done, we'll hand over to Brandon, and he will take you through some real live, real-world examples of how we've applied these principles in those 3 different phases of work, so you understand what it looks like in action and in practice. So the first principle, as mentioned, it's all about engagement. How do you create highly, highly immersive and highly contextual settings, situation, and engagements with consumers that prime the opportunity for story? Second is the art of disruption. And you're going to hear some of the science around, cognitive science and what it looks like and how do you go about flipping normal mental schemas and expectations so that you're just kind of completely turned around, ready and anxious to tell you've experienced something so different that it's very, very talk-worthy and very share-worthy in terms of your story. Third is surprise and delight. And this is really all about kind of the little touches, the extra attention to detail to just really make, story-worthy experiences, story-worthy environments. And then the fourth and final is, it's all about how do you motivate, how do you trigger and prompt consumers to tell that story and to go share that story. So I'm going to shift gears, pass it over to Paulette to take you through those. I'm going to also pause at this transition. Anybody else that's joined, just a quick reminder, double click on the presentation slides to kind of get that in bigger view. And again, I want to remind again, we will be sharing these slides out, so feel free to just follow along and don't feel burdened to take notes. But Paulette, why don't you go ahead and kind of give a little bit of the schooling here of the 4 principles.
Sounds good. So if we move to the next slide, the first principle is engage, which basically is just providing as immersive of an experience as possible with content that is really contextually relevant or meaningful to someone in their life and what they're experiencing today. So on the next slide, we'll break that down a little bit. And, every single communication touch point is an opportunity to create an experience or to seed an idea that will ultimately become a great story. And these ground rules, I know they may seem a little bit obvious, but they are really foundational and they are surprisingly easy to stray from. We see that happen a lot. So to create positive engagement at any touch point, really remember to first just be very clear about what and why you're asking someone to engage. Like, your input will do this, or your input will mean this, or it will affect this outcome. Let them know what they're doing and what their contribution will mean. Next is to ensure what you are communicating is actually relevant to them and it makes sense in the context of their daily life and what's important to them. So first, and this is if possible, understanding really important demographic information or habits and practices before you engage them, if that is available to you, is super, super helpful. But just try to be contextually relevant in their life. Just put yourself in the consumer's shoes and ask yourself, would I care about this? Would I do this? And you probably have your answer. And then lastly, appeal to feelings and emotions as much as possible. This is so important for storytelling. The more immersive their experience is, the more that they can draw from their own personal account of something to tell an authentic story, not something that's kind of contrived. Our next principle is disrupt. So flipping what's assumed or what's expected totally on its head. And from message creation for a big idea or a simple category survey or even a live product experience, you never want to miss the opportunity to disrupt a schema or to flip someone's expectations in a positive way. So I'll break that down. And this is one where you'll really want to double click that because there's a few things going on the screen here. But just kind of a definition of schemas to start off. Schemas are sort of accepted consumer beliefs that occur throughout our day and our life. So it's, I think, or I assume, or I expect that an experience or an outcome will be a certain way based on what I've already experienced or what I know, or maybe what I've heard from others. And so if we want to get into the cognitive science a little bit for a second, all schemas can actually be broken down into one of four basic quadrants. On this quadrant, so if you kind of look to the left side first, widely held positives, will start there. Something that is positive, these schemas are positive that most people kind of already believe, already think is true. So there's really not a whole lot of disruption potential there. And then moving down, you have your widely held negatives, a negative experience or an expectation that many people have in common. So there's lots of disruption potential there. A lot of people have this problem. You could solve it for a lot of people. Then if you look at the right side of the quadrant at the top, you have your narrowly held positives. Now this is something positive that maybe only a few people have experienced, a few people know about. And so this has a lot of flipping potential because it would be new news. And then you have at the bottom there your narrowly held negatives. These are negative experiences that very few people probably have had. So solving it or working to solve it, probably not worth it because you're not disrupting the schema. So let's put this into practice. Let's insert brand here and we'll give you a few schemas here. So let's take a brand like FluMist. FluMist is a nasal spray flu vaccine. Any parents in the group might be familiar with this one. We're using this one to help break down some schemas. So those two areas of lower disruption that we have up here, kind of grayed out, are that wide positive, right? Something that everybody thinks is probably true. Getting the flu shot's a quick way to help keep our family healthy during the cold and flu season. Sure. And then you have people, narrow negatives, the few outliers who think that nasal vaccines cause headaches and irritation in the sinuses, and I'd rather just have the shot. Okay, but solving for that or flipping for that is not really rich ground. The gold mine areas for high disruption potential are your widely held negative barriers. So this one might be a familiar one. I know my family should get the flu shot every year, I know, but all the fighting and the screaming and the tears, it is a losing battle. We don't do it. Probably a lot of people have that in common. We certainly heard that. And then a narrowly held positive, a few people who experienced the benefit or were exposed to the unique benefit of FluMist said, wait, no flu and no needles at the doctor's office. That's like getting a shot for flu and stress too. Pretty awesome. So this narrowly held positive is new news, and it has just flipped your expectation, your widely held barrier shared by so many about a negative experience at the doctor's office. It interrupted your expectations and it flipped them with an exciting new possibility. So that's kind of the science, if I could break it down, on disruption and schemas. But in messaging, if we go to the next slide, that narrow positive is anchored to a unique point of difference for the brand. So in all marketing engagements, there is an opportunity to flip a schema as well. And we are going to show you that in a minute, some great examples. But the net of disruption is that when you disrupt a schema in a positive way, you appeal to emotions as well as thoughts. And what you say becomes very sticky, very memorable, right? Because it disrupted that schema. And storytelling for people is just a lot more fluid for a consumer when they experience a message or any kind of experience really that's easy to recall, it's easy to remember, and when there is a happy ending, of course. So then moving on to the third principle, surprise and delight. As a marketer, you can deliver exactly what is expected, or you can go above and beyond, and we're certainly in that camp. So let me break that down a little bit. How can you put surprise and delight into practice? Well, when you go the extra mile to surprise and delight with more than what someone would expect, you are, again, disrupting a schema of what their expectations were. So what does that look like? Well, first, what we can tell you is if you assume sort of a party host mentality, get into that mindset, what are those little touches that would make my guests feel like, wow, they did this just because they knew I would like it, right? If you can kind of assume that mindset, you'll make a lot of great decisions. By incorporating visual or tactile or emotional kind of plus-ups to consumer engagements, you're adding very interesting details, and therefore you're making their story more fun to tell others. Little kind of perks, little, and then this happened, right? That's a much more fun story to tell. And then what's more, and this one's super important, guys, is surprise and delight does not have to equal free stuff or coupons or surprise sales, or reaching into your pocket really in any way. It can happen at any touch point surveys, emails, small get-togethers. But the point is, surprise and delight is about showing that you put thought and energy into what a consumer would just like and enjoy. And so we're going to show you some examples of that as well in a minute here. All this build up to these examples, right? And then our fourth principle here is motivate, just making sharing fun and making it meaningful to someone who is actually writing the stories and sharing their stories. So how do we do that? Well, it's important to remember that not everyone who has a great experience is also a great storyteller, right? And not everyone who has a great story is super comfortable sharing it with others. So start, small, right? Start with your social channels or maybe your existing email database. But whoever you're speaking to, just be sure you encourage and motivate those novice storytellers. So the first tip we can give you here is don't ask for reviews. Ask for stories. Big difference, different mindset, right? A story is something that happened to me. A review is what I thought, kind of in the academic about a product. So just be transparent. Say, we'd love to hear a story about how life was before this product and maybe how it created a new experience or maybe a small change in your life. Tell us that story. And then take the pressure off of them. Show examples of real talk reviews, not polished, awesome, beautiful stories and beautiful photos, right? There's no need to be a copywriter or a photographer. Just tell it like it happened, spell it like it sounds, say it from the heart. Those are the best stories for sure. And then lastly, celebrate how helpful and exciting these stories are to others in the same life stage or sharing the same frustrations or who had those same barriers and how this story helped solve that for them. And then also tell them how helpful they are to you as a brand and why, right? So the net on motivating is always, always, always make consumers feel like their story is worth telling, because when they feel like they made a difference in someone else's life, they will want to tell another story and another story and another story. So that's the 4 principles, guys, just kind of wrapping up: engage, disrupt, surprise and delight, and then motivate them to share those stories. And now Brandon's going to show you some examples of how we put those principles into action.
Great. Thanks, Paulette.
You're on mute, Brandon. There you go.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There must have been a delay. Sorry about that. Great. So this first one is a fun example that really disrupted Isotoner's expectations of what research can look like. So let me set the context just a little bit. Isotoner was planning to launch a new lineup of sandals, and it was with their new patented technology. But prior to launching, they wanted to conduct research and get firsthand feedback capturing the stories from their target audience, competitive sandal owners. The team was confident that these new sandals would win over those competitive buyers, so much so that they actually wanted to capture that experience on video and then share that story with the Walmart category buyer in an upcoming meeting. So needless to say, the stakes were high. Knowing they needed to get the richest engagement, content, insights, and capture it on video, we worked with Isotoner to execute the research applying our 4 key principles: engage, disrupt, surprise and delight, and motivate. The end goal was to tease out the most insightful and compelling story told through those competitive sandal buyers. So what did that look like? So we first engaged via a simple survey on Facebook and identified women who were highly involved in the category, sandal enthusiasts, if you will. Then after setting the stage, we invited those sandal enthusiasts to join a highly immersive and contextual research experience where they'd be able to get a sneak peek and try on new sandals. That's where the magic happened. It was this immersive and contextual setting that really set us up for success to capture amazing consumer stories told by these women. Instead of a traditional research facility, we really disrupted it. We flipped the research expectations and invited them to a spa day. They were invited to join us at the new Woodhouse Day Spa and receive full service pedicures, meet other women, try on sandals, and then talk about their experience. These so-called panelist slots filled up immediately. Many women actually said they almost felt like they were indulging themselves by participating in research. And while the atmosphere was primed for rich engagement, the surprise and delight, remember that creating story-worthy experiences within the details and personalization that you can do as a brand to make that customer or consumer feel truly valued. It was the little plus-ups that really made the experience delightful and memorable along the way. As I mentioned, it was a full-service pedicure, included a scrub and leg massage. During the pedicure, the women were pampered with small plates of light bites and mimosas to sip on while they made small talk with one another, kind of breaking down any barriers, right? After a few stories and laughs, they were invited to a private lounge to try on new sandals, walk around, and share their thoughts amongst the entire group. Finally, as a parting gift, each woman was able to take a pair of the new, not yet on the market sandals home with them in her size and color. And the amazing thing is that although it wouldn't seem it, it actually cost less than it would have cost to perform a traditional research at a more typical research facility. So again, from a motivate standpoint, throughout this experience, we prompted the women to capture and share their own stories while engaging with one another. We prompted them to share stories that include everything from basic shoe shopping and tales of woe from past experiences to more specific questions about the sandals themselves. It was their unscripted, unfiltered responses captured throughout that truly told the holistic story. In fact, it was one woman who said, "I don't feel like I'm walking. I feel like I'm bouncing." Her description of how she felt actually is what later inspired the product name of Totes Soul Bounce Sandals. Looking back now, it was actually really cool how that all played out. I actually like to share, I mentioned the Walmart video. I'd like to share some of that, but in the interest of time, I won't share the whole thing, but I wanted to share some of it so you can actually get an idea of how the research led to the stories and content that could be repurposed for their selling. All right, let's roll it. So as you can see, the video introduction set the stage for the story to be told to the category buyer. What you'll see on this next slide here is that some of the questions that we asked during the research to elicit and capture their stories. We shared their responses as part of the full video with Walmart, but cut them out due to just time sensitivity right now. But what you will actually see is on the bottom right corner, the response to the last question here. What would you text a friend about these sandals?
Hey, there are these super lightweight sandals I found. They would be great for running errands and hanging out at home, and they're so comfortable. They're less than $20.
I just found the most comfortable, cute, cushy shoes. You have to try them. They feel amazing.
I tried on the most comfy sandals that I've ever worn. It was like walking on pillows. You know how I always complain that my heels hurt, but not with these. I can really wear them all day.
There are new sandals that just came out. They're really comfy and cute. They're waterproof and have a flexible material that feels like it massages your feet when you walk.
Hey, I just found these super comfy flip-flops that would be great for the pool, running errands, or playing with the kids. Waterproof and reasonably priced.
So again, just a little bit of a spin and different positioning to elicit great stories. And this was how we were able to consolidate the content of those consumer stories told through the research and deliver it as part of that Walmart category buyer sell-in video. Overall, the stories that were captured there from the research led to naming the product, the retailer sell-in, and helping inform their go-to-market strategy. This next example really speaks to perhaps the most critical moment when you should listen to your consumer stories and feedback, the stage of product incubation. A healthcare company that had a new product technology that would establish a new subcategory in oral care. They came to us, and before they wanted to pull the trigger to invest that capital needed for production, they wanted to hear firsthand from consumers who would actually pay for the product. The brand wanted to put the product up for sale to not only see if people would buy, but also understand who would buy it, their usage experience, and to capture their story. What the brand heard not only changed their prime prospect for the product, it also changed their entire marketing strategy and positioning behind the product proposition. So in order to engage, we invited consumers into a unique insider shopping environment where they could engage with the new product, shop, purchase, and try it. To make this happen, the brand created a small batch of a few hundred units. They did this before they finalized their product and launch strategy so that we could actually place it for sale in an e-commerce environment and see and hear what would happen with real consumers. We see companies every month, both big and small, lean launching new products. It's a smart new approach that we encourage all of our partners to consider. However, with this lean launch, there are some unique differences that made it far more valuable than most. You see, with disruption, you want to make sure that you're actually creating an experience that is, disruptive and flips the schema. So we actually were upfront about that this product was not yet on the market. And that was upfront to both buyers and shoppers. They were getting exclusive access. For a traditional lean launch, it would typically equate to putting a new product on Amazon and doing a Facebook ad buy. Short and simple. And while that's great to see if your product sells, it typically falls woefully short in truly capturing feedback and anything worthy of being considered a meaningful story. At best, 5% or 1 out of 20 buyers will leave a review. And rarely do those reviews provide any true substance or insights for the brand. Meanwhile, you're definitely not going to hear and capture any feedback from those who shopped and didn't buy your product. So while, yes, you could have executed, and we could have executed a lean launch via Amazon, placed a small ad buy, the brand didn't just want to know if the product would sell. They wanted to know why it sold, why it didn't sell, who it sold to, how they used it, and much more. So instead, we decided to disrupt the lean launch approach. We sold the product in a controlled environment where we could engage and re-engage with not only those who bought, but also those who shopped and didn't buy. The brand was transparent and overt that the product was not yet on the market and that these shoppers and buyers were getting exclusive access. This flipped the schema for both the buyers and the shoppers, and every voice mattered. So as far as surprise and delight, both the buyers and shoppers were equally valued from the get-go. We gave everyone a voice and a platform to share their journey. The brand followed up directly with not only those who bought, but even those who shopped. The brand surprised and delighted each shopper by recognizing and valuing their feedback, whether it be positive or negative. Multiple were actually invited to participate in live one-on-one, in-home, or video sessions. Others were invited to join group chat sessions where they could engage and respond directly to brand questions or even piggyback off of other consumer comments and feedback. It was through those sessions that the breakthrough stories started to just shift the brand's perception of the product and its true purpose. But what about motivate? Each buyer and shopper, we motivated them to share their personal story. In fact, it was those personal transformational stories captured from the buyers that actually inspired us to encourage them to inspire others.
Yeah, here's one of my many favorite stories we got to hear firsthand in a one-on-one session. And really all we had to do, guys, was just set up a Zoom call and encourage her to tell us her story. So one of our product triers, Susan, had some really tough barriers. She said, my gum issues have been progressing for years, and I literally dread every trip to the dentist. My pocket depth had increased to the point where I had to start getting very expensive, very painful periodontal deep cleanings twice a year. My gums are so sensitive and nothing I tried really helped. Do you know my regular cleanings are so painful, the dentist has to give me Novocaine just so I can stand them. And as it turns out, while that's extreme, that's, an extreme story, Susan's, it was echoed on milder and various levels by many other people. It turned out that it was a really kind of a widely held barrier. But after using this product for a few weeks, Susan actually had a very new and different story to tell. She said, for the first time, I was actually excited for my cleaning. I really noticed a difference when I flossed, but I wanted to see what my dental hygienist would say. So she looked at my gums and then she called the dentist over and said, look at this. And they couldn't believe it. The pocket depth was better. My gums were firmer. I didn't even bleed with the floss. And then for the first time in years, I had a full cleaning with no Novocaine. I felt like I got my life back. I feel like there's finally hope. And I don't feel that sense of dread and shame in the chair anymore. So when can I buy more? I mean, think of that. What an incredible story of a life transformed, and not from a professional author, just from a regular person who felt compelled to share her extraordinary story just because we gave her the right tools and we asked her to share a story. And that's feedback that you really don't get from just a standard research.
Thanks, Paula, for sharing. I absolutely love Susan's story. This was just one of many that we heard directly from users. And we quickly started to realize the power of each of these consumer stories. And together we encouraged and motivated the buyers to allow us to capture their stories so that we could share it with others. It was this insider shopping experience and these consumer stories that actually led the brand to completely transforming their messaging strategy. They went from a brand claims and professional endorsement to a messaging strategy filled with authentic, compelling testimonials that could reach and influence a more hyper-focused target audience. So this last example is one that focuses on how to capture consumer stories when your product is already in the market. Many businesses use product trial campaigns to try and generate, UGC and reviews. And while this is a great tactic in order to fully capture the power of the consumer story, we would ask you to consider applying the 4 principles to maximize that impact of the trial experience. In partnership with Head & Shoulders, we were able to do this with a true difficult to reach audience when they launched Head & Shoulders with Old Spice. Together, we were able to reach, engage, and capture content from, dun, 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 teenage boys. Anyone familiar with teenage boys knows that there is a huge difficulty in the task of trying to get them to engage. After all, they're not typically known for opening up, sharing personal stories with strangers, especially when it comes to an embarrassing topic like dandruff. So how do we do it? Well, first of all, we started with mom. We engaged her. After all, there's no one who cares more about the health and confidence of their son than mom. And by engaging the moms of these teenage boys, Head & Shoulders was able to get their product directly in the hands of these young men, resistance-free. In fact, 90% of stories that we got back include moms literally not saying anything up front to her son, but instead just placing the shampoo in their shower and seeing what would happen. Reaching and engaging mom allowed us to get the shampoo contextually placed and create an immersive experience for both mom and her son. From a disruption standpoint, while the product on its own could deliver the results, the trial experience and contents are what made it truly disruptive. The overall schema disruptive message of your son needs protection from his helmet, ironic, huh? Really hit home. This message was delivered to each household along with the product and easy to digest and understand educational materials. The materials meant for both mom and her son help them understand the root of their dandruff issues and as it related to football and their helmet usage. This wasn't about getting products into their hands. It was about disrupting their knowledge. One mom wrote, "Gosh, I never thought about a helmet actually being a breeding ground, but thinking about it, I'm sure that's true." From a surprise and delight standpoint, it wasn't just about getting the message that, into their hands that, broke through. We created an experience and contents that were truly designed to surprise and delight the recipient. First of all, the educational materials were intentionally designed and laid out thinking about these teenage football players. Their passion is football. So instead of a brochure or note cards with product benefits, the educational materials were laid out in a football playbook style. And the contents also include a 3D paper helmet for entertaining photo opportunities. Second, there was a full bottle of the product to sample. It wasn't your typical trial size sample that normally gets thrown into a drawer or a travel bag. Also, giving them a full bottle allowed them to enjoy the full usage experience. Resolving your dandruff doesn't just happen overnight, and we wanted them to realize the full benefit of the product. From an Inspire standpoint, with this trial kit came a straightforward invitation to share their experience, and the contents made it easy to capture fun, engaging UGC from not only mom, but also for those teenage boys who are historically so difficult to reach, engage, and share. The results, this campaign led to over 3,000 pieces of UGC, nearly 1,000 reviews, and over 3 million impressions. And not only that, but we curated the photos with their stories and inspirational testimonials.
Yeah, by asking some feeling-based questions, we actually uncovered dual barriers, both moms and sons dealing with a very sensitive topic. And there were a lot of layers of frustration, and one kind of more revealing than the last. An example of that, one mom said, my son Nicholas has horrible dandruff. He would get so mad and embarrassed when I would even mention it. And when I learned that wearing his football helmet and getting all sweaty and dirty every day is actually what was causing the dandruff, I had my in. I could help him see that he wasn't gross. It was his helmet, and that was what was causing the gross dandruff. Seriously, his whole attitude changed. He was actually excited when the package arrived, and he loved the manly scent of Old Spice. But I love that Nick's dandruff improved dramatically within days. Right? So talk about a motivator for sharing. These rich stories served as desperately needed answers to a widely held barrier for so many moms of teen boys. And we let this particular mom know how incredibly helpful her story was to so many other moms of teen boys in sports. And you know what? She became a top contributor and storyteller after that. Remember to validate and celebrate those great stories.
Awesome. So as you can tell, this campaign demonstrates a simple way of producing rich, consumer-led stories, not only through words, but pictures. It helped the brand engage, disrupt, surprise, and delight, and motivate this hard-to-reach audience to share their story in their own way. Hopefully these examples inspire some thought-provoking ways that you can apply the 4 principles to the work that you're already doing today. With that, I'll hand it back over to Jeff.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Paulette and Brandon. And again, just to kind of summarize, I mean, hopefully you noticed we specifically chose one example from each of these 3 key pillars. Again, right from really the art and the ability to orchestrate deep, heartfelt stories, really understand the tensions people are dealing with and the real lifestyle context situations. Just really helps you get to next level, deeper buried insights and ideas that really empower. And that comes through storytelling in a way that you don't typically get through, some of our standard type of research. And then again, second example around incubation, how incredibly important that is in a real world selling context, how to really uncover those stories to understand shopper, non-shopper buying or shopper and non-buyer behavior and how to further refine and develop your proposition. And of course, marketing gold, right? The ability to elicit awesome share-worthy stories, UGC, and obviously allow that to scale and amplify to really kind of move the message and carry the sentiment forward in a very, very authentic and influential way. So again, the 4 principles, hopefully you saw each example and each pillar of work, even though each phase is a very different type of work. It really comes down to being mindful of and really kind of have the set objective of how to apply principles like these, with the nuances and the touches to elicit that type of deep, rich storytelling and those further insights and those share-worthy experiences. So we encourage you guys to hopefully take some actionability out of that, build it upon what you're already doing. We are absolutely here to help. We would love to connect with you if you want to talk further, explore a little bit further. We're super passionate about this stuff, and we'd love to share any help that we could. We'll leave you with this is a very brief snapshot of a few of our select kind of key product offerings that are a little bit more turnkey, but you can see also kind of grounded in those 3 same key phases of the work, right? So that there really is continuity end to end through depth of immersion with consumers, deeper, richer insights through story that allow you, again, in the early phase, really, whether it be co-creation, whether it be much more disruptive ways to get at those insights and ideas as you're prototyping. We've created in that transactional space, the incubation phase, a couple of, Brandon showed you an example of insider shopping. We've actually scaled solutions to do that. And so there are ways to get at, real world shopping either before you're on the market and you're still in iterative incubation, or if you've recently launched, but uncover those elements of who is really shopping, who is buying and why, who is not buying and why, and what are the barriers I need to address, and just obviously getting that much further in your knowledge and insight and how to move your proposition forward. And then the last is obviously some very scalable turnkey tools around reviews, right? Reviews are retailer specific or broadly, deeper, richer reviews. Reviews are not all created equal, right? The difference between a loved it, smells great, very different than one of the heartfelt stories and one of the transformations that you heard in some of the examples today. And those are what really move the needle and influence others. And then what we call Maxfluence, which is a blended combination of appropriately paid influencers and earned influencers passionate in a certain area, where together that becomes a broad go-to-market influencer program to generate amazing content, share worthy stories, and shareable word of mouth. And then content well, which is really about, content in a world today of real world consumer story and experience-based content versus just brand produced content is incredibly powerful, and you can scale that broadly. So again, if any of these have any potential interest and relevance, we'd love to talk to you further, show what some of it looks like. But more than anything, we just thank you for your time and for your attention. We wish you a great rest of the Centrifuge Signal event, and we hope to hear from you. So we'll sign off now. Thanks so much, you guys.